Here's exactly how one of my year 10s went from getting 0 out of 15 to 15 out of 15 in their writing task in just 3 weeks using my accelerated progress method. In this video, I am going to give you absolutely everything that I did with this student and that this student did in order to make sure that they actually got this 15 out of 15 that both myself and his mum were incredibly proud that he did after only working with me for 3 weeks. And if you want to find out exactly how you can start working with me, then drop the word three down below and I'll reach out to you. But first, for those of you that don't know me, hey, my name's Estriana. I'm the director at the GCSE Spanish Academy, where every single year I take the load off busy parents to help their child transform their study approach using my accelerated progress method to help them achieve what we're working at a grade 7 to 9 early before the cramming season starts at the end of year 11. And every single time I pop into your newsfeed, I'm giving you an actionable tip and a tool to help you do that too. So, in order for you to understand exactly how I helped this student get these results, only right at the beginning, the first few weeks of year 10, you actually have to understand how they came to me. And so whenever I start working with students, I do an assessment, and that assessment came out at him working at roughly a grade 3. And so we had a conversation, a 45-minute call with myself and his mother, and him. And I identified some of the weak areas and then assessed him based on those weak areas to find out where those specific gaps were. And we came out about a 3. As you can see, I've actually linked his assessments there. But he is wanting to achieve a grade 9. And what is actually great about this student is before they jumped on that call with me, they were kind of saying, oh, I might get a grade 7. After the call, when I showed them everything that we were going to do, they were like, okay, I want to achieve a grade 9 and I think I can do it because we're starting early. And this is really the key. And this is why I absolutely love working with this family and with this particular student is because they've started early. So we're not panicking. There is no rush, but we're still accelerating his progress and we're able to do it in a really detailed way, which is great. So based on his assessment, these were some of the roadblocks. These are some of the issues that came about. Some of the things that he was actually struggling with. Now, that is not absolutely everything that he's struggling with. If that was the case, then life would be nice and easy. But we like to focus on here at the GCSE Spanish Academy, we like to focus on things that we can fix now and then move up the scale in terms of things that we are going to fix later. And so, as you can see, he's struggling with the irregular verbs in the preterite tense and the preterite tense verbs. He was really just regular and irregular. But one of the things that's really key, and you're going to see this in a little bit, that he really struggled with connecting and making sentences in Spanish on his own. He struggled with being able to write in Spanish accurately. He had ideas, he knew what he wanted to say, but he couldn't say it in Spanish. And then with the vocabulary, there was that there is what it actually is the acronym adjectives, conjunctions, time phrases, intensifiers, opinion phrases, and negative phrases is the acronym that I use with my students and to really help them have a variety of vocabulary. And so these were some of the key areas that he was definitely struggling with that I picked out from the assessment. And the reason why I did this was so that we could create a plan. And that's exactly what we did. The first thing that I always create is a progress strategy. And so this is really the anchor, so to speak. Everything that I do comes from. If it does not originate from here, we just won't do it. The reason why we do things like this is it's simple for both myself, parents, and students to see. They know what our progress strategy is. But if you don't have a strategy, as you can see in my slogan, state, space, skills, strategy, okay? You need a strategy. You need something that is going to be almost your Bible, so to speak, that you are going to be doing everything from. Because what starts to happen if you don't have a strategy, you just go everywhere. And one of the things that a lot of students experience when they have a tutor is their tutor doesn't really have a detailed plan. They just improvise. And I love improvising at the best of times. I think some of my best lessons, especially in a class setting at school, are actually where I have have an idea of what I want to teach. I know clearly where I want them to be, which is a strategy, and then that allows me to improvise. And you see, that still requires that strategy. I have a plan, an idea, I know where I want you to be, and then I can then improvise. And that is really one of the biggest benefits of working with myself in my one-to-one accelerator program is we have a strategy and then I adjust to the particular student. And this is exactly what we did. And so our focus was grammar. As you saw previously, there were lots of issues, but our focus is grammar. And you're going to see that actually these end up being fixed with our focus still being grammar. What this means is this particular student is therefore not overwhelmed. They're not overwhelmed by the amount of Spanish that they've got to do or the amount that they've got to focus on in different bits of homework. No, we have one singular focus, and I can afford to do that as I like to call myself an academic coach, a Spanish academic coach, because tuition is part of what I do. But coaching is really the main thing, or the main part that makes this successful. So I can then move with this. And so we decided on grammar. Well, I decided based on his assessments that grammar would be where we were focusing on. And then we look at perspective, which is identifying what the examiner wants this student to be able to do with their grammar that they currently can't do. Okay, and that is writing accurately both in the present and in the preterite tense, because there were some issues in the present tense as well. So then we develop a target. Because this student is in year 10, we can just have one. If they were in year 11, or they were coming to me later in year 11, we would have three. But here, where he was in relation to where he needed to be, we only need one target. And so his particular target was I'll be able to write accurately in the present and the preterite tense in the first person, so that's the I, we form, and the third person, he, she, it, and they form when he's completing a 90-word task. And so we know that we're really just going to be focusing on the writing. The reason why we focus on writing first is because it is the bridge to students being able to speak in Spanish. There's a lot going on, but if you're getting used to processing vocabulary in Spanish, it's really good to actually just start with writing first. And we do still do lots of speaking. It's not that we don't do speaking, but we do speaking after we've actually done writing. And that actually appears quite a lot. So let's have a look at this plan then. So how do we aim? And this is that's really what the plan is. How are we going to implement this target? How are we going to work towards this target? Well, I need to know three things. I need to know what he needs to be consuming, what content we need to be going over, how often, the consistency, and then where he's going to be getting critique or feedback from. It's really important that a detailed plan has these things. And you notice there's not very many words in this plan, but it is something that parents and myself, I can hold myself accountable and parents can too. And also the student therefore knows where we're going. So he knows and his mum knows that these are the things that we're actually going to be focusing on: common irregular verbs, stem changing verbs. So this is a lot in the present tense because that's to do with the irregularity, because he was fine with regular verbs. The preterite tense, and then the different preterite tense endings, and then ir, this verb ir, which is to go in the preterite tense as well, which is an irregular preterite tense verb. But we're only going to be focusing on this one because that is a commonly used verb. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on. That's it. So we know that. Then, how often was he going to study? Now, in my one-to-one accelerator, students can see me as much or as little as they want and or need. It can be scheduled or flexible or a mix of both. This particular student is mostly scheduled, but we have seen each other. We've only been working together for 3 weeks, but we have seen each other on one occasion, which wasn't scheduled, but that's absolutely fine. That's the point of having me in the one-to-one accelerator. And so he sees me twice a week and then has this ISS as independent study session. And so I would plan an independent study session for him. And what that independent study session looks like is going through this particular content. And you say, okay, what do you do with you then? What we do is we identify the areas that he's struggling in that particular content and then move to improving it. That means that this is not only this has stretched this particular student to build their confidence very quickly in Spanish because they're doing a lot of it. They're doing Spanish by themselves. and they are going through things and tackling things on their own. And then when they spend time with me, which happens to be twice a week as scheduled, they are then able to ask some great questions. They have some great knowledge, and I can then push this particular student further than they could have gone on their own. You see, every single student has a place where they can go by themselves. The job of a tutor or an academic coach or a Spanish coach is to be able to take them further than they can go on their own. But for that to happen, they've got to actually be able to go that length by themselves anyway. Then we're going to identify where you're going to get critique from, where you're going to get feedback from. This is really helpful for parents to see so that they know how often they're going to get feedback. Well, every single week, this particular student has a written task that they need to do, so they know what their expectations are and they're going to get feedback, as well as verbally in our 2 sessions. Because this particular student is seeing me twice a week, they're doing independent study sessions for up to an hour a week, so things that I will plan for them to do, not like homework. If you've seen any of my other videos, I actually walk you through the difference between homework and an independent study session. I can actually link that somewhere, so that you can then have a look at that as well, because independent study sessions are very, very different. Um, I'll tell you one thing about them is they're aimed to really do 2 things. One, as I said, to push the student, but also to identify problems so that your child is therefore able to ask high quality questions. Okay, which really helps with us growing, and that's really helped this student. But then, as part of the plan, we have what called my KPIs, my key performance indicators, which is based on the target. And his KPI is rate of recall. How much can you remember? So we're really focusing on being able to remember more. Now, there are a plethora of reasons why I chose this, but one of the ones that is really evident in this particular student is it's boosted their confidence. They didn't think that they were very good at Spanish. Okay, when we met in that first school, they said, I'm not good at Spanish. I can't this, I can't that. I mean, I think it must have been about a third lesson, he'd said, which was our second week, he said, I can't write in Spanish. And I said, okay, we're going to change that. Well, a few weeks later, we've completely changed that, and you're going to see that in a moment. Um, but it means that this is a confidence booster. You can remember more, you know more, and they don't need to worry about, oh, did I use this word correctly or did I not use this word correctly? They can solely focus on the fact that, did I remember more at the end of the session? Yes, therefore I'm making progress. Because one of the things that actually Ofsted noted is that students find languages difficult because they don't see a path ahead. They can't see the progress that they're making. They're not aware of the path ahead or behind. And so one of the things that we make sure that I make sure that my students are able to see is that they are making progress. And that puts parents' mind at ease, it puts my mind at ease, definitely. And it also, most importantly, puts students' minds at ease. And they start to enjoy the subject, they start to enjoy their lessons, which is great, which is what they should be doing. We want them to enjoy their lessons. Then I developed a weekly plan. So they up until October half term, it was 6 weeks. And so we've still actually got 3 more weeks to actually go, which is amazing that they've actually already reached that particular target for the first time. And I'm going to show you what we have actually done. Okay, so we have a target for every single week. So we have an overall target there. Oh, it's also there. Okay. This is what they're going to be able to do. And then I've broken it down into things that we are therefore going to be looking at in our focus. That's the reason we have this progress strategy in our focus, which is grammar, which you can see, but we also have a means of being able to test it and where they're going to be getting feedback, as you can see in their writing. They're going to write a paragraph, and that's all we've done. We've looked at some irregular verbs. We've looked at, and these are all irregular verbs, different stem changing verbs. It's just another type of verb. And then I've broken them down into individual steps. So they're going to watch particular videos, they're going to complete independent study sessions, and they're also going to attend 2 para-hours, and they're also writing paragraphs for me. What that does is that sets an expectation. We know where we're going. We know what we're going to be doing. We know why we're going to be doing it. And let me show you what the results of doing this just for the first 3 weeks. We're halfway through the first half term in year 10. That is what they wrote at the beginning of the year. As you can see, no Spanish. This was part of their assessment that helped me identify what was going on. They said that they could not do it, didn't know what to say. It was too difficult, couldn't do it at all. Okay, and now I'm going to show you something that, so it's a similar task, not the exact same question, but exactly the same task. It's a 90-word task with 3 bullet points. I don't have the question with me, but that is what they wrote and got 4 marks, 15 out of 15. Absolutely excellent Spanish. They wrote that all by themselves. I'd walked them through how to plan it. Okay, and we did do a tester, like we did it together, but this is them writing this particular one. They wrote on their own with no help from myself. I was with them because it was during a lesson, but it was during the assess part of the lesson where we actually look at students doing it by themselves without my help. Okay, and so in these independent study sessions, we go through what is called my study cycle. And at the end of that study cycle, okay, at the end of the lesson, students then need to assess they get assessed. And this here we can see is by a written paragraph. Okay, and funnily enough, the reason why we actually went down this route of writing this 90-word paragraph was because he had actually said to me, I can't write, which is evidenced here, but he could. And this is one of the things that happens a lot with students is they develop an internal belief, and then what they're doing looks like this internal belief. And so what I've been doing a lot with this particular student is they've done other 50-word tasks that were great, but this is a 90-word task, and this is the first big writing question that's on the higher paper and the most difficult question on the foundation paper, which is exactly where we want students to be at the end of year 10. If we're looking at some decent, why do we want them to do this by the end of year 10? He is doing it in the first few weeks of year 10 and only 3 weeks of working with myself. But he created this internal belief of, I can't, I can't, I can't. It looks like he couldn't, but we're actually breaking that false belief. And so I've been doing a lot of work with saying, okay, look, because I call him as a joke, Mr. Can't Write, because he said that he couldn't write. And we kind of have a little bit of a joke about it because you said you can't write. And I am very upfront about it. You said you couldn't write. But look at what you've just done. We've got to get rid of that belief so that you actually do write, because there is a real issue. A lot of boys as well, but with girls too, if they believe that they just can't, and so they don't. And if we hadn't have done this intentional work, going over verbs to make sure that he is confident with them, and then look, he's writing in the past tense. We haven't even touched the past tense yet. Okay, writing accurately, using some excellent subjunctive phrase. Like there's loads of phrases in here that make this an outstanding piece of work. I think it ended up being 130 something words, which is no problem at all. But the reason why he was able to do that was the strategy that we put in place and the performance indicators and the plan. Okay, the plan is really key to being able to make sure that you can do this. And so we are going to see an immense set of progress over the next few weeks because we've still got things to do. We're still going to be working with him for a while. So I cannot wait to see this particular student achieve a grade 9, but I thought that I would show you so that you can see exactly what my methods are, exactly why I did what I did and why I didn't do other things that people often do. They sit and they do grammar tasks, and actually they do them by themselves because students can do grammar tasks by themselves. The point of me is to be able to get you to excel in your grades. Okay, and this is evidence of that. So if you want to give your child an opportunity to progress ahead of what we call cramming season in year 11, drop the word 3 down below and I'm going to send you a DM. Now, to be totally upfront, you are beginning your application for my one-to-one accelerator. My one-to-one accelerator doors have been closed for about a month, but I am now going to be opening the doors again for students. I'm only going to be taking on roughly 2 or 3 serious students. Now they can be in year 9, your child can be in year 10, or your child can be in year 11 at this point. There is a point where I actually will stop taking on year 11s. We'll see what happens. And it's not a guarantee that I will take on 3. I might just take on 1. Okay. And let me just walk you through kind of why I may do that. So one of the reasons why I may stop enrollment is because I have a student that needs me more. Okay, one of the things with my one-to-one accelerator is students have unlimited on-demand access to myself. And so to be able to ensure that everybody is getting that unlimited on-demand access, I need to identify whether your child is going to need me more. And so I might only be able to take on one. So you definitely want to drop the word three down below if you are interested in getting a spot, getting your child enrolled, finding out exactly what that's going to look like for you. And what are we going to therefore do? So we're going to have a conversation over DM. I'm just going to talk to you and identify really where your child is, because one of the things that is really important is your child needs to be motivated and willing to study. Funnily enough, with this particular student, I was about to not allow them onto my one-to-one accelerator just because I couldn't be 100% sure. I was 100% sure by the end of the call, obviously, but at the beginning of the call, in the middle of the call, and actually up until the last kind of 5 minutes of the call, I wasn't sure that this particular student was motivated enough to put in all of the hard work to actually get their grades. And so I am not going to be working with students in my one-to-one accelerator who I'm going to have to be chasing, who I'm going to have to be trying to get them to work. I need students who are focused and driven and motivated, because that's what makes it easy for me to be able to provide the support that helps students do that. It is not for students who are not willing to put in the work. And so I'm happy to, because some of the reason why this student was able to convince me was a little bit of coaching that I did on that call. So I'm happy to have a 45-minute call with you and to help you get your child to that place. So don't worry if your child isn't at that place yet. But if they're not willing to be at that place, or you don't think at all, and if they don't get to the end of the call and they are at that place, the one-to-one accelerator definitely isn't for them. But if we can get them to a place where they are motivated, willing to put in the work, and some of that, as I'd mentioned earlier, requires them to be able to see the path ahead. And so I'm going to walk them through my student journey. Okay. And so they can therefore see the path ahead. So we are going to have that conversation. Then we're going to get on a 45-minute call with both yourself and your child. What's really beneficial is if you bring a piece of writing to that your child has actually done, because then I can see that. And we're just going to talk. I'm going to be finding out exactly what your child is, where your child is, what they find difficult, what they enjoy about their other subjects, because that gives me a little bit of insight what their week looks like. How would we fit the one-to-one accelerator in? I'm going to give you an analysis of exactly what's going on right now, exactly where your child is probably going to end up as a result of the decisions that they're making right now. And then I'm going to show you exactly how I am going to work with your child, or could potentially work with your child, to change things. And then at the end of the call, it then moves into, if I think that your child would be a fit for my one-to-one accelerator, I'm then going to offer them a place. And that's where the decision therefore comes in. And I will offer that place. And then we can say whether you would like to join or whether it is something that is feasible for you. Because I am very full at the moment, here's the other caveat, is we are looking for students who are therefore going to be investing for a minimum of 3 months. That's just so that I know that I've got the most committed students, and I'm pouring my time into those students who are really committed to achieving that grade 7 to 9. So if that's something that we can't do, unfortunately, the one-to-one accelerator isn't for you. But if you are a parent who is willing to invest in your child's education, and your child is willing and motivated, I don't care whether they're working at a grade 2 or at a U, I will take everybody and anybody, okay? As long as they are willing to put in the work and you're willing to invest in your child's education, then we are going to work well together, and they will get into my one-to-one accelerator. So that is that. If you would like to start that process, drop the word 3 down below and I will get just reach out via DM. Right, that's it from me. Adios.